much, Bonnie. Like,
We have to have a way to set the music up so we.
Oh, we do, we just have to pull
I
that
know.
out. Okay.
We don't want to.
Sorry.
Guadalupe, would you like to provide our devotions?
yes.
Please.
You forgive me my pronunciation.
No.
I try to do my best.
Stop worrying.
I try to do my best. Okay. Positive beginnings. There are lots of superstitions about the New Year's. Many of them involve food that are supposed to bring good luck for the coming years. For instance, Pennsylvanians have a tradition of eating pork and avoiding turkey on New Year's Day. The reason is a turkey stretches backwards, but a pig root forwards, representing a forward-looking approach to the new year. Even if superstition about food have no real basis, the value of a forward-looking approach is unquestionable. Instead of dwelling on past mistake or bad luck, we need to make constructive plans for the future. A positive outlook coupled with determination are more important than luck in shaping our lives. New Year's Day may be associated with making resolutions, but any day is a good time for a fresh start if we choose to make it so. We have been born anew of perishables, but of imperishable seeds through the living and enduring Word of God. 1 Peter 1:23. Renew us each day, Holy Spirit.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody here is one half as excited as I am for Patrick's presentation this morning. So please come forward and share your excitement.
Yes, I am very excited to share with you all my, and get my cursor going in the right direction here. Very excited to share with you my family's trip this past June and July to England, Wales, and Scotland. In these three photos, that's Salisbury in England. The middle photo is a Finian with a shipwreck on the beach in Rhossili, Wales. And then the third is Needle Rock on the Isle of Skye in Scotland. So I'm going to give, bear with me, I do have a number of slides. I'm going to go a little quickly, but I'm also a teacher who is accustomed to people raising their hands or interrupting to ask a question. So please feel free to interrupt if you have a question or raise your hand. I'd be glad to stop. I don't have to, it's not like I'm giving a sermon this morning. So just a bit of background. I came to Claremont in the fall of 1993 to study with a Welsh philosopher named Dewi Zephaniah Phillips. So that's pronounced like dairy, but with a W, Dewi. Dewi, and he did not like to be called Dewey. I finished an MA in philosophy in 1995, and this picture on the left shows me with Professor Phillips. No, it doesn't. I got to go back. Okay, so this is going to be one of my challenges here. All right. This picture on the left shows me with Professor Phillips on the day that I received my PhD in religion at Claremont Graduate University in 1999. I was hired by Claremont the month after I graduated, and over the next couple of years, Professor Phillips became my best friend. So I miss him dearly because he died in 2006, and I became friends with his family, his wife Monica there on the far right, and he has 3 sons. 2 of them are here. He has 2 daughters-in-law, one of them there in the picture, and 4 grandchildren. My first time to Wales was 2003 for a conference. I had trouble counting up the number of times. It's been 8 or 9 times. So this was either my 8th or 9th trip this past summer. But I went to Wales 3 times before Professor Phillips died suddenly of a heart attack in the library in Swansea in July of 2006. And I attended the funeral in Swansea and gave the eulogy for the American friends there. So then, during those trips, I fell in love with Wales, especially the people, of course, and the places, the beaches, the castles. But the place I most love is a very small village on the west coast of the Gower Peninsula called Rosilly. And see here, did I go to the next picture? I did. I'm going back and forth between screens here. All right, so on June 21st, 2008, Faye and I were married and decided to spend our honeymoon in Scotland and Wales. And after a week in Scotland, we were met at the airport in Cardiff, Wales, by Monica, who pampered us for a full week, which was quite nice. So for this year, we had a bit of a story in how we ended up going to Wales and Scotland. Our plans for the summer were to meet our friends in Germany. So Faye grew up with a friend from Pasadena, and she works for the State Department. We visited this couple and their 2 boys in Mexico City a couple of years. Now they're in Frankfurt, Germany. So we were going to go to Germany. Well, Monica, Faye's friend, said, Monique, I'm sorry. Monica is Dewey's, thank you, dear. Monique said, I'd like to go to Scotland. And I said, well, you don't have to ask me twice, but you got to come to Wales too. And so I made them meet us in Wales, and so this was our trip. Faye added the night in Salisbury at the beginning because I'd never been, and she said, you absolutely have to go to Salisbury. Salisbury is her favorite spot in the British Isles. And then she also added the 2 nights in Windermere at the end of our trip. So it's a pretty long trip. We did this by car. And you'll see, I'll just, so we flew into Gatwick, and then we drove to Salisbury, which is close to Stonehenge, from Stonehenge to Bath, and then to Rosilly the next night. I don't know how many of you have been to the British Isles, but for Americans, it's not very big. Like it's you can drive and be in places in a day. Yes, go ahead, Lorraine.
I had a question about Stonehenge.
Yes, I'm going to get there in just a second, but go ahead.
Were you able to actually go up to the rocks?
No, you cannot. They no longer allow that. But it was an interesting story about our trip. About an hour to 2 hours after we left Stonehenge, some environmental activists painted the rocks. I don't know if you remember that this past summer.
Orange.
Or painted it orange, yep, one of the big stones. It was removable paint, so it wasn't a disaster. But it did get a lot of international news, and that happened just after we left. All right, so going back to the beginning of our trip here. This is Salisbury, where we began. The cathedral was magnificent. We arrived in the afternoon into Gatwick, drove to Salisbury. Finian crashed in the hotel, literally. He didn't sleep at all on the plane, so he was out. And I went for a coffee and scone to admire the cathedral here while Faye stayed with Finian. And then later, she joined me, and the highlight of Salisbury for us was actually, sorry, there we go. Evensong in Salisbury Cathedral. This is just a touch up. So it was a wonderful experience. I mean, that is something I definitely will remember and treasure.
Question.
Yes.
What century is Salisbury Cathedral? Isn't it 1200s?
Yeah, I think so. I think 13th century.
And it was built over just like 40 years, so it's one of the few that's very uniform in its architecture, as opposed to being built over like 300 years. Should double check that.
So, yes, we got to Stonehenge, and we were very disappointed to find it to be so small. Right. It was a lot of fun, actually. We took some goofy pictures there, but it's an amazing place. It's so kind of overwhelming to think, how many years ago it was there. But here we go. I guess I better allow. I don't know. Let's turn that off. Oh, go back. Okay, so one of the things that happened when we drove from Stonehenge to Bath, which Bath, many of these places have extraordinary cathedrals. The cathedral in Bath is also magnificent. And we ran into a group of students from my alma mater, Samford University in Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. So took this picture with these students. Samford has a house. They actually opened the house when I was a student in the 80s, in the 1980s. And so they've had this house since then in London where Samford students stay for a semester and travel around. So that was a lot of fun to run into that group. Well, we drove all the way over to the coast, and about a 3.5 hour drive, arrived in Rosilli about 9 p.m. and still had plenty of time to catch some light and the beach. It's one of the great things about being in the British Isles is how light it stays, and then the further north you go, of course, the lighter it stays. So this is that same night of our arrival. There's Finian standing next to the shipwreck. I took a video that I'm not sharing here, but you can see how far out the tide is. And so we were up close to the shore. The shipwreck is pretty close to the shore, actually. And Finian said, "I'm going to run up to the water." Well, the water was so far away that he got tired and turned around and came back. He never actually got to the water because it's so big. And that's the same evening, I believe, in our backyard the place that we stayed in, which was very nice. The next morning, we were greeted by these Welsh ponies. Hey guys. So the next couple of days, we, oops, didn't mean to do that. It did it on the click like I told it to. We don't have to watch it again. There we go. So the next couple of days we spent wandering around Rosilli and enjoying our rental space, which was very nice. The first couple of nights we stayed in the place on the left, and then when our friends arrived, who I'll introduce to you in a bit, we stayed in the place on the right, which was much larger. But one of the places we visited was Pinard Castle on the Gower Peninsula. This was just a short drive from us, pretty close. And then we got a visit from Monica, my professor's widow, and one of his sons, Aled. And we had a really nice visit. They came out and had lunch with us, and then came to our house we were staying and visited for a while. It was great to catch up with her. I call her, every now and then, every couple of months or so. I try to remember to call her and chat with her. So just a lovely person. So then our friends arrived from Germany.
Pat, put the mic a little further from the
Oh, sorry, it's popping a bit. Our friends arrived from Germany, and Dan, you see with the sunglasses on, he is from Pittsburgh. Monique grew up with Faye in Pasadena, and their two boys, the one sitting next to Faye is Sebi, short for Sebastian, and the one over there next to Finian is Nico. So Nico and Sebi and Dan and Monique, they're really wonderful to travel with. The boys are about Finian's age, and he's one of the few friends that he almost never has difficulties with, like fights or anything. Like they just really, the two boys fight with each other, the two brothers, of course, and I think Finian's kind of fascinated by that, and it works out pretty well for him anyway. So you can imagine that they had a great time on the beach. There's the shipwreck, another shot of that same shipwreck during the daytime. Could that hill be any greener? It's just amazing. One of the things I love about the place, and there they are. This is a famous feature of Rosilli is Worm's Head, and this is an outline of Worm's Head, which juts out into the bay there. And there is a tidal place where you can walk across when the tide is low. If you try to cross when the tide comes in, the sign says you will die. Don't try it. It's pretty dangerous, but also fun when it's dry. More fun on the beach, and so yeah, you can see the tide is in mostly now, so you can see the water between the cliff on the left and the Worm's Head on the right. We did a lot of hiking. These two pictures on the one on the right and the one on the bottom, that is crossing over to Worm's Head, which a couple of us made it all the way out to the end. And then here's another video of Faye. I know you find this hard to believe, but Faye was quite taken with the ponies. So let's see if I can, I don't know, is that a
Just a picture.
Oh, okay, just a picture. All right. So it really was unbelievable to experience that. Okay. Now we are on to North Wales, and this was my first trip to North Wales. All those times I've been to Wales, I'd never seen Mount Snowdon, never been to the north. This is my first time to North Wales, and we took the train up Mount Snowdon, and here Faye and Finian at the top. It was mostly covered over, and just as we were about to get on the train, the clouds began to disperse, and so we're like, please board the train. And we're like trying to take pictures really quickly before jumping back on the train. There was we had, of course, on this trip, you get these serendipitous moments, and one occurred when we got off the train, went back to the parking lot, and we were about to get into the car to go to our place in Carnarvon, where we were staying one night, and we thought, let's just take this trail through the woods here, and so we took the trail through the woods. And what did we find? Oh my. We found, yeah, this was literally, I don't know, maybe 300 yards from the parking lot of the train. It wasn't like it was so surprising because we were next to a little, like a large creek, small river kind of thing, and we're walking along that, and we didn't really do a huge elevation. We just kind of walked up a little bit, and this is what we saw when we got up there. It was pretty amazing.
Isn't that structure there like what could be called a powder house where they used to keep munitions?
Well, I'm sure that place housed munitions at one point, but this was originally a castle built so there people lived here. This was actually a fairly famous place where, boy, my Welsh friends would really be upset with me. One of the early Welsh rulers lived here. Yeah. So,
And I have another question.
yes.
Down the second picture to the right.
Yes.
What are we looking at? It looks like old remains of roads and buildings.
That's standing at the top of that tower.
So we're standing on top of the tower to take this picture, looking down on the lake below. You can see to the left, you see a little bit of what remains of strip mining, which was stopped in the 90s. That whole area, it looked like, we called it Mordor, because it looked like the Lord of the Rings area that was completely stripped of everything. And then, so this is looking down on the lake there, which the name of which I didn't look up. So then that night we went to Carnarvon. We had a wonderful Indian dinner and saw one of the most famous castles in Wales, which is Carnarvon Castle. And we then, the next morning, drove from Carnarvon. We took the 9-hour drive to the Highlands of Scotland, which is, not many Brits would do that, actually, I think, unless you were driving a lorry full of goods. But yeah, one day's car ride, and on the way, we visited a couple of castles. This was a really incredible castle. In fact, a couple of times we visited castles that we didn't plan ahead. It was like, oh, here's a castle, and that's what happened for this one, and it was magnificent.
Dune Castle.
This one was Dune Castle, yes, thank you. But then we did arrive at Loch Ness in Fort Augustus, Scotland, and it really was beautiful. The place we stayed at was a 19th century abbey right on the loch. It's called Fort Augustus Abbey. It's now run by a real estate company that they have all these apartments in there. It was very beautiful and very comfortable too. Oops, I thought I had already done that. There we go. That's the Abbey. Fort Augustus Abbey on Loch Ness. There's the inside of the Abbey. This is a little shot of our apartment on the left. So all 7 of us are together in this place, and there was plenty of room. There was a swimming pool, indoor pool for the boys, which of course indoor heated pool, which they loved.
On that picture that you just put
Yeah.
on the wall, that symbol.
The one up on the top left?
Yeah, well, it's right in the middle of the wall, actually.
Oh, you mean the orange ring?
No,
The bird.
Yeah.
It's a bird and a shield.
Yeah, the top left.
Crest.
Yeah.
What's that called?
Some, I don't know, some kind of creche maybe, some sort of crest, I mean, not a creche, a crest. I know what a creche is, although we never called that growing up. Anyway, yes, I don't know, but it does look like a crest with a raven or something on top there.
Just wondered.
But Loch Ness had a beauty all its own, whether in the daytime or at midnight. There was always plenty of light to take pictures in Scotland in the middle of the night. Oh my, how did that get in there? Yes, of course, no trip to Loch Ness would be complete without a sighting of Nessie, and you can see we have our proof here of our...
yeah, that's from the ferry. There's like a little sticker on the window. So you can take a picture and make it look like. I mean, that's really cool.
That's not how I remember it. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. We had conversations with locals about Loch Ness, which was pretty interesting because one of the guides was really trying to convince us that he really believed that there was a Loch Ness monster. Anyway, it was interesting discussions. There was also another guy, when one of us said, "It's raining," he said,
That's not rain. It was like barely sprinkling, and I said, "Ooh, it's raining." And he's standing here with a kilt, and he goes, "That's not rain." Very cute.
So then we went on more hikes and saw more castles while the boys went with Dan and Monique on a whitewater rafting trip, which was Finian's first. Faye and I did our own little trip to the Isle of Skye, and on the way we happened upon Eilean Donan Castle. This was one of the few castles that we visited that still had the family residence. The owners of the castle had inherited it from many years past. Very, very interesting because much of the display inside was family heirlooms and photos and stuff. Eilean Donan. All right, now we get on our hike to on the Isle of Storr up to Needle Rock there on the left, and the Old Man of Storr. I'll let you decide which one is which.
Oh, I just realized I'm in that picture on the left.
You are in that picture. Do you see Faye in the picture on the left? She's way down in the bottom left corner. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
See how big it is that way.
Yeah. I think I've got let's see.
I didn't send you any of my videos.
I have a video that I think you took, but you sent me earlier.
Okay.
So let's try it.
Hey there. Where are we?
Wow, we're at the Old Man of Storr and the Needle Rocks on the Isle of Skye.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's raining sideways.
It was, you know, very much like British Isle weather. It would rain heavy and stop, and then rain heavy and then stop. And when we started the hike, it was raining very heavy, and we really didn't have a clear idea of how long the hike would be. So we just kind of played it by ear to see if we could get all the way to the sites here, and we were able to do it. It was a little over an hour up, I think. So we were sufficiently tired after this one.
Hey there. Where are
I did not want to see it again. There we go. Well, we did eat very well. Here we had a wonderful meal in Fort Augustus. We just walked to this really nice restaurant. We ate lots of excellent fish and chips in just about every town that we went into, which I love.
I was going to say something.
Yes, go ahead.
Everyone I visit in England, that's their best fish and chips in the country. No
Yeah.
matter where you go.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Well, it's everywhere. You know, you can get fish and chips every place you go. The Indian food. What's that?
That wasn't.
No, that was not fish and chips. This restaurant.
Fanciness.
Yeah, it was the nicest restaurant that we went to while we were there. But the Indian restaurants are also very good in the UK, both in England and Scotland. Not as much maybe Wales, but I guess certainly in England and Scotland. Okay, so on another day.
Patrick,
Yes.
is that wooden silverware that you're using?
Yes, it is. But we have the ordinary stainless steel to the right. That was for some kind of.
It's like a part of the appetizer or something.
Yeah, it was like an appetizer.
Interesting.
So on another day, we took a trip to Inverness, which is a place where Faye and I spent several nights on our honeymoon in 2008. So we did some crossover with our earlier trip to Scotland on our honeymoon in 2008, but we mostly did new stuff, things that we didn't, because on our honeymoon trip, we stayed on the Isle of Mull, which is further west and south of the Highlands, and we stayed in Inverness, which we absolutely loved. We had such a fantastic time there, yeah, lots of fun. One of the stories about Inverness is that on our honeymoon, we were getting over our budget, and so decided that I couldn't buy one of the expensive wool sweaters when I was there. So on this trip, I made sure to save up my money and buy a really nice sweater, which I did not wear today. Faye wore hers.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's she bought that in Inverness, and yeah, that was very exciting to
The House of Fraser.
get new sweaters at the House of Fraser in Inverness. And what trip to the Highlands would be worth its salt without a visit to the Scotch distillery, which was a lot of fun too. Maybe not as much fun as you would think, but
We were both born in 1977, so that's us with a
Oh.
1977
and a border collie farm just outside of Inverness. We watched a demonstration of border collies in action, and took this picture of all of us together. And then here is the video of what was magnificent about this is the farmer there. You see him standing in the middle. At the beginning, we didn't see sheep anywhere, and just the dogs were there with him, and he gives them the commands, and they disappeared over the hill, the bottom of the hill. And then like 30 or 40 seconds later, up come the sheep from the bottom of the hill with the dogs behind them. It was pretty amazing. It was a lot of fun. That you can imagine that the boys really appreciated it, and we all did. It was really great. So this is that demonstration.
It's really nice.
Yeah, that was fun. It's always doing that. There we go. So, and Finian and Nico found their spirit animal. Or maybe just, as I say here, stubborn brothers who refuse to get haircuts. Yeah, it was. There was a time there when I really thought Finian might never ever cut his hair again, because every time we asked for several months, he said nope. But he finally did. Well, all good things must come to an end, and we had to leave the Highlands, which was kind of sad. But as you can see, we did okay leaving the Highlands. This is the region of Glencoe to the west, and as you exit out of the Highlands, I guess technically it's still part of the Highlands, but it's on the southwest side. And it was, we were stunned by the beauty of the Glencoe region, all three of us. Dan and Monique and the boys went to Edinburgh and then back to Germany. And we headed south, and we didn't do so badly, because we went to another beautiful place. This is Windermere in England's Lake District, and we stayed on the lake for 2 nights. We went to Wordsworth Cottage in Grasmere, which was pretty amazing. It was turned into a museum, and really a wonderful place to visit. Spent a couple of hours there or more. And then I have another video for you. This is on Lake Windermere. This is the view from our porch, and you're going to see Faye and Finian canoeing in the lake.
Mine's filling up with water in the back. But I got out all my clothes right up to my legs.
Oh, yeah.
Well, then came the bad news. It was time to go. So we headed back to Gatwick, and we, not yet, there we are. We actually slept at the hotel at Gatwick. It was fantastic. It's the Sofitel Hotel, and you get out of your bed and you walk to your gate, which is really terrific. Yeah, no.
Reserve your car there too.
Yeah, we returned the rental car to that spot, got in our hotel room, got up the next morning, and literally walked to our gate. Well, that makes it sound real easy. It wasn't quite that easy, but it was pretty easy. No vans, and time to go. So yeah, we've got a couple of minutes for questions. If you have a couple more questions for me. Yes,
I just have
Sherry.
a couple things to say. First of all, I'm so impressed that there's hardly anyone around wherever you go. Just scenery and all this beauty, and you're not bothered by congestion and all that stuff. That has to be a real pleasure. Secondly, I remember a number of years ago when Patrick was our moderator. And one night I was sitting next to him at a council meeting, and I said, Patrick, are you going to get to go to the international meeting this year? Well, no, he says that's when Faye is due to have Finian, so I can't go. And I said, well, they're thinking of having it in Wales, not knowing his background. And he said, I might reconsider. However, we tried to get to Wales several times for an international one, and they just never could have us. They weren't big enough. But anyway, yeah. I'll never forget you saying that.
Yeah.
Shannon,
Janet.
quick question. You returned your rent. Did you drive all of these things?
Yes.
So on top of everything else, you had to do
Yeah, and
learn how to
Yeah, I drove everywhere. I've driven just about on every trip. You know, when you like the countryside as much as I do, the trains and buses are not quite as convenient as having a
I
car.
just meant getting, the thing that scares me in the roundabouts, that the roundabouts.
Well, you just keep going around and
Yes,
just
you have to
constantly
exactly.
getting out.
You have to know which side the traffic's coming.
Yeah,
And also reserving your car ahead of time to get automatic, because
Oh,
otherwise you
yes.
might scroll up again. I did stick shift the first time.
I did too.
Yeah, you know.
yeah, it's
But it's more fun that way.
Well,
Yes.
sure.
automatic is much easier than the stick shift when you're trying to, because of course you have to change gears with your right hand, which you're not accustomed to doing. So yeah, it's not too bad. The only rule I had for Faye and Finian was that every time we got into the car, they had to say keep left. When we pull out of the parking lot, that both of them had to say keep left, keep left. And you do get used to it. The most difficult point is pulling out of a parking lot. Because when you pull out or into a parking lot, you immediately want to move over to the right-hand side. I remember on our honeymoon in 2008, so I didn't have a ton of experience, but I was driving on the Isle of Mull, and most of the road is one lane, and then there are these cutouts where you pull over, right, to get out of the way. And there are big buses that come on these one-lane things. So anyway, we met a car and on this one-lane road, and I thought, oh, I'll be very nice and move over. Well, I moved over to the right, and it completely confused the car in front of me. Probably took them 2 seconds, and they said, some American is driving. And so they drove by on my right side, and then when they were driving by, I realized my mistake, and I'm sorry. Yes,
How
sure.
many miles you drove? How many miles is that?
I did have was it on my, let's see, did it say on here? It might have. Yeah, 1,658 miles. Because the Isle of Skye was a 2.5-hour drive, and then it was an hour drive to Inverness and back, and so yeah, we did a lot of driving.
Well, I was just gonna say what Faye said about the Scotsman telling her it wasn't raining, it's called a fine soft day. in
A fine
Scotland.
soft day.
Fine
Oh,
soft
I
day.
love that.
Well, that's certainly my view. Finian and I absolutely love the misty, rainy, cool. Now, I don't like 25 degrees and snow where my sister is in St. Louis right now, at least not on a regular basis. It's kind of fun, but I do love our winters here and the very cool, overcast winters that we have here. I like that quite a lot. And so I can get that in the summertime in Wales and Scotland. Yes, sir.
So how brave were you when you were driving on the M route? I assume you
Yes.
were on, what did you get it up to?
Well, as Faye will attest to, I'm a pretty fearless driver. So I drove where there was a limit. I drove up to the limit. I stayed in the faster lane. I'm the kind of person that likes to get where I'm going. So
Probably like 80.
I tend to drive on the fast side, but
Their speed regulations are a bit more strict though.
yeah, they have stricter regulations and really clearer regulations than we have. You really know where you're supposed to be and people do not dawdle in the passing lane. That's just not acceptable. Which I don't even know why we call our lane a passing lane. It's not a passing lane. People just, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, Lorraine?
Some of us might dawdle in the passing lane. I remember getting out into the right-hand lane, it was the fast lane on the M5. I think,
Yes.
And then I thought, oh, look at this, nobody's around. I can just take it nice and easy. and some guy comes up like this, I'm moving, this guy comes up,
Yeah.
and he just paces me, and he just puts on his lights, and I thought, what's happening? Oh, I need to get out of this lane, that's what's happening.
Yeah, and there were, I didn't drive as fast as the real fast, like every now and then you'd see a Jaguar or Mercedes come along and they'd be doing 100, 120, you know. But you can get a ticket for going that fast in Britain. So, as opposed to Germany where they don't give you tickets for going that fast. Yes. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Tom.
For people who have not been there or whatever, the big spire on Salisbury Castle,
Yes.
it's supported by polished granite columns right there in the middle of it.
Yes.
They're actually bowed because of the weight of that critter. And the itty bitty little Stonehenge that she had her hand on and stuff,
Yeah.
those rocks that are laid on top of the other ones, they wouldn't fit on that stage at all.
Oh, yeah.
No, they're gigantic.
They're
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they've been puzzled for many years about how some of them got there. There's a new theory now that the so-called blue stones were from a part of mid-Wales, which of course is many hundreds of miles away. But then the new theory now is that one of those blue stones was there from a couple centuries earlier. Somehow it got there before Stonehenge was built, and that Stonehenge was built around that one blue stone, and they actually knew about this other place where they brought more from. So anyway, it's pretty speculative, but they can do some amazing things with archaeology these days. Other questions? I hope not. I'm starting to get hungry.
I think it's time.
Yeah, it's time. Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed sharing with you.